And as a father, I can't even imagine what you're going through. Gun control is one of the most divisive, hot-button topics in our nation. But that should not be an excuse for avoiding the issue. In fact, that should be the opposite. Gun rights need to be addressed, and they need to be addressed now.
That's because he means it.
But I want to be absolutely clear. I believe that the American people have every right to buy and own guns by virtue of the Second Amendment. I would also like to take a moment to quash the myth that somehow gun control is equal to the federal government coming into your home and taking your weapons away. Nobody is advocating for that.
Yet, that is a clip from Designated Survivor starring Kiefer Sutherland. It's a little disappointing to see our friend Jack out there from 24 with that particular speech. But here's the thing about the Hollywood culture. People see these kind of monologues on television all the time. As I say, I'm Bill Whittle sitting in for Coley Noir, and I'm just on the other side of the Hollywood Hills out there. And behind me is the gigantic entertainment factory that functions the way it does. And most people would look at that scene and think that, well, okay, maybe it's just a scene written by the writers on the show, but it goes a little bit deeper than that. And to get down to the sort of the bottom of this entire web of deceit, maybe certainly a web of something, let's bring in our friend Stephen Gutowski. Steve, are you there?
Hey, Bill, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks very much for joining us again today, Stephen. You're a writer for the Washington Free Beacon, as we know, and you took a little look into this clip because it's not quite as innocuous as it seems, is it? It's not just a writer in a writer's room someplace making a reasoned pitch for sensible gun laws, as they would have said on the show.
Well, no, not exactly, right? I mean, the Brady campaign, which is one of the nation's largest gun control advocates groups, they're actually involved with Designated Survivor in the sense that their president briefed the staff of the show before the season began on sort of their viewpoint on the issue of guns. And I think that episode, the clip that you just showed, and then the episode that came after it from last week, are probably, I would think, is fair to say, the fruits of that brief. As there was quite a lot of gun control talking points in the plot, as we just saw.
One of the things that's so pernicious about this, Stephen, I'm sure you're well aware of this. When you go to watch a movie or you're watching a TV show at home, you really kind of relax, and on some level, they call it the willing suspension of disbelief. You're going to watch a show about walking vampires or zombies or whatever, and a part of your mind that normally is pretty critical about things just relaxes and you start to take this in. And I think most people in America would be just absolutely shocked if they were to discover how much collusion there is between the people that manufacture television shows and many, many, many liberal special interest groups that have a very big effect on what people see in their living rooms. And it just comes in with the air. We don't even realize we're ingesting it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair to say, right? Certainly, when it comes to the Brady campaign, they're open about what they're doing with this, I guess to their credit. They've been consulting on scripts for a while now, openly and publicly, taking credit for it, as they did in this case with Designated Survivor, but also with, there was a movie called Miss Sloane that came out last year. But they've, and shows like The Good Wife and Grey's Anatomy have also seen consulting by the Brady campaign. So they're definitely doing it. I mean, there's no question of that. They're openly telling everyone that they're doing this.
As a reporter, have you ever heard of a case ever where Hollywood decided, if Hollywood decided that, well, we're not going to take the NRA's position on this, but we'll at least get their viewpoint? I never have. Have you ever heard of a case where producers on a show decided, no, they wanted to be fair about this, they wanted to get both sides, so they'll talk to the Brady campaign, and then they'll talk to the NRA and try and figure out where the middle is? Because I've never heard anything like that kind of balance in the stuff that comes out from Hollywood.
Yeah, no, I don't think I've ever heard of an instance of that. I certainly would imagine the NRA would be open to something like that, but I haven't heard of a case like that, no.
But they would never ask, would they? And even if they did ask, I just don't think it would be incorporated into the show. It's hard for people who live outside of this little bubble that I live in to understand just how crazy, crazy left-wing Los Angeles is Santa Monica, People's Republic of Santa Monica, and all the rest. So this kind of comes out, just kind of comes out with with the very air they breathe, right? This bias and this tilt is built into anything that they produce. Have you seen examples of this kind of bias regarding guns, anyway, on any other episodes in the recent future of any show?
Oh, sure. I mean, you see it all the time, as you're alluding to. The writers in Hollywood are mostly liberals, and I think that comes through in a lot of the work that is produced. And one of the interesting points, especially specifically to Designated Survivor, is if you watch the episode where Kiefer Sutherland's president is laying out his agenda for his first 100 days, they paint him as an independent. He's supposed to be the first independent president. He's not supposed to be a member of either party, which is a little bit odd since he was a cabinet level secretary beforehand. But either way, he's supposed to be independent, and he's supposed to be like this moderate guy, which is a common theme. I think you see in a lot of these shows that deal with politics and follow politicians. But reality, his actual agenda is very left-wing, as you can see with the example of gun control here, but just down the board. And the show takes on a lot of liberal pet causes throughout the first season, and tries to present Kiefer Sutherland as president as more moderate than he really is. He's much more liberal than they let on.
Well, out here in Hollywood, you have the entire spectrum of diverse opinion from far left on one hand to extreme left on the other. Were you disappointed to see Kiefer Sutherland doing this? Because I know the role he played on 24, Jack Bauer role, endeared him to a lot of conservatives and to a lot of people who were in, the sheepdogs out there, soldiers, policemen. When that show started, it was pretty straightforward when he started. He was clearly a guy who's working to protect the United States of America. I know a lot of people really sympathize with him. And I think it's hard for people to see somebody who you identify with so much with a character that you got to love kind of going around and doing an about face on the things that you liked about him in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, Kiefer Sutherland's an actor, so who knows what his actual personal opinions are. I'm sure he's probably stated them publicly somewhere, and he's probably more liberal than most of us would like to see, the people who were Jack Bauer fans like myself. And I think, to be fair, like, to your point here, it's Designated Survivor, at least when I was watching the promos for it, the premise of it just, it seemed to me, the reason that I tuned in was that, it's going to be Jack Bauer as president, right? I mean,
right, exactly. Jack Bauer as president.
Yeah, Jack Bauer as president, taking on this big conspiracy that murdered the entire federal government. Well, the show's nothing like that, really. He's very low-key, very indecisive character. It's almost the exact opposite of Jack Bauer, really. And the show focuses not on the terrorists' attack, really, mostly just on the sort of day-to-day politics of a new administration coming in. That's kind of the role it's taken. That's why they had a whole episode on gun control. It's actually pretty absurd, really, when you think of it. I've been watching the whole show. That's why I was noticed the plot line and thought to ask the Brady campaign about all this. But did
they respond?
Their first agenda is gun control. They haven't even replaced the Supreme Court yet. There's no Supreme Court in this show.
Did you talk to the Brady campaign when you were working on this article?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the...
What did they say?
They openly said, yes, our president went and spoke with the creators of Designated Survivor and gave them their point of view. And they were very happy with how the show portrayed the issue of gun control. In fact, they set up a whole campaign to get their supporters to thank ABC for airing the episodes.
Yeah, rest never sleeps, and neither do these people, apparently. It's funny out here. Almost all of the actors and most of the writers are very liberal, but the closer you get to reality, the more conservative people become, until you finally get, most of the crews tend to be a little more, certainly more conservative than the cast. And when you get down to the stuntman, Stephen, you're dealing with some of the most conservative people on the planet, some of these Hollywood stuntmen. They're real guys. and they're many of them are either retired police, retired military, and I can't tell you how many times I've heard those guys say, I have to sit in a dressing room or out at lunch with these actors, and these actors are talking about, how horrible the situation was in Iraq and how the troops are psychopaths and murderers and the policemen are nothing but blue-jacketed murderers. And so many conservatives in Hollywood have to just either look at their shoes and not say anything or never work again. Have you heard anything about that kind of intimidation out here in Hollywood in terms of the conservative opposition?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us in conservative media have heard those stories for years, right? Obviously you're right there, so you probably get a lot of this firsthand, hearing from these guys, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's pretty shocking, actually, and it's really, really unbelievably intimidating and brazen. I'll tell you what, Stephen, we're going to cut to a break here for a minute. When we come back, we're going to pick up a second story that I can't say I like very much, but which is extremely interesting regarding Trevor Noah over on The Daily Show. And we'll talk about that in some detail when we come back from the break. I'm Bill Whittle, sitting in for Colleen Noir, and this is NRA TV on CN Live.